I never wanted to be the face of anything. I was always more comfortable invisible. Hoodie up, laptop balanced on my knees, code scrolling down the screen like rain on a windshield, endless and hypnotic. Some people dream of stages and spotlights. I dreamed of systems that never failed. Systems that stayed calm when everything else panicked. People think companies are built in boardrooms. They aren't. They're built in quiet places, by people who don't sleep enough, who forget birthdays, who talk to machines more than humans. That was me. Back then, my world was a concrete parking garage under a half-empty co-working space in San Jose. At night, it echoed. Every sound felt larger than it should have been. I slept in my car between freelance contracts, folded the seat back, used a jacket as a pillow, ate instant noodles heated with a portable kettle. Coffee was my currency. Sleep was optional. I was 26 and convinced I was one good system away from changing everything. The code I was building wasn't glamorous. No shiny dashboard. No demo that made people clap. It was back-end infrastructure. Real-time data processing. Fault-tolerant architecture. Systems designed to survive failure without anyone noticing. Invisible code. The kind of code nobody applauds. And that's why nobody cared. Until Caleb showed up. Leo, right? I looked up from my screen. A man stood there smiling like we already knew each other. Clean haircut, tailored jacket. Shoes that were too expensive for concrete floors stained with oil. "I've heard about your coat," he said, hand extended. I stared at him for a second, then laughed. "That's impossible. Nobody's seen it." He didn't laugh back. He just smiled wider. "Exactly." That was Caleb. He didn't need to see things to believe in them. He just needed to know how to sell the idea that they existed. We talked for hours that night. He asked questions nobody else had asked. Not about what the system did, but about why I built it the way I did. What I was afraid of. What failure looked like to me. I told him the truth. Most systems fail quietly before they fail loudly, I said. I want mine to survive both. He nodded like I'd just given him a slogan. Within weeks, we were inseparable. We worked out of cafes during the day in that same parking garage at night. Caleb talked. I built. He pitched. I patched. He practiced investor conversations in the reflection of dark windows. I rewrote database queries until they shaved milliseconds off response times. He promised features before I finished them. I stayed awake to make sure he was never wrong. When people asked what we did, Caleb said, "We're building the future." When they asked how, he pointed at me. "This guy," he'd say. "He's the brain." I hated that word, brain. Like I was something in a jar. Useful but separate, but I let it slide. Because back then we were still friends. We incorporated at a coffee shop with 2 laptops and a cracked wooden table that wobbled every time someone leaned forward. Caleb filled out the paperwork. I drew server architecture diagrams on a napkin. "CEO and CTO," he said, raising his coffee cup. "Equal partners. 50-50. I remember hesitating, just for half a second, a feeling I couldn't name. Then I nodded. The first year disappeared. Days blurred into nights. Nights blurred into mornings. I lived inside the system. Authentication layers, payment routing, data replication. I built redundancy into redundancy. Every line of code had a reason. Every server had a fallback. Every fallback had a backup. I didn't do it for money. I did it because the system was mine. I knew how it breathed. I knew where it would crack under pressure. Caleb flew to conferences. I stayed behind and kept things running. By year 2, we had users. By year 3, venture capital. By year 4, an office with glass walls and conference rooms named after abstract concepts like momentum and vision. A board of directors arrived. Men and women in suits who shook Caleb's hand and nodded like he was already famous. They barely looked at me. At first, I didn't notice the change. Then I did. Caleb stopped inviting me to meetings. Said they were high level. My calendar filled with internal reviews and technical audits. His filled with strategy dinners and keynote rehearsals. He started introducing me differently. "This is Leo," he'd say. "He's our technical guy. Not CEO founder, not partner, just technical." I told myself it didn't matter. I worked 100-hour weeks without blinking. If a server spiked in Singapore at 3 in the morning, I rerouted traffic before the alert finished loading. If something broke, I fixed it quietly. Caleb noticed, but in a distant way. "You don't need to stay this late," he said once, half smiling. "We've made it." I shook my head. "Systems don't stay stable just because you believe in them." He laughed like it was a joke. By the 5th year, the distance was obvious. One afternoon, he pulled me aside. "Maybe try dressing more polished," he said gently. "Investors are traditional." I looked down at my hoodie. "I don't talk to them," I replied. He nodded. "Exactly." That was the moment something shifted. Not betrayal. Not yet. Just a quiet realization that we were no longer building the same thing. I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, watched the system logs scroll by. Everything was running perfectly. Every metric green. Every process stable. And somehow, that made me uneasy. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. No subject line. No explanation. Just one sentence. Mandatory board review. 10 a.m. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. I wasn't worried. That's the part that still surprises me. After everything I'd done for the company, fear felt irrational. I'd saved us too many times. Built too much of the foundation. People don't fire foundations. They renovate around them. I closed my laptop, grabbed a coffee, and walked toward the executive floor. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. Each floor number lit up, then vanished. My reflection stared back at me in the mirrored wall. Hoodie, tired eyes, someone who hadn't slept enough in years. I told myself I was overthinking it. The boardroom doors were already closed when I arrived. I pushed them open. The room smelled like polished wood and expensive cologne. 12 leather chairs surrounded a table that looked like it belonged in a museum. Caleb sat at the head. He didn't look at me. Board members filled the seats on either side. Faces I recognized, voices I barely knew. Legal counsel sat against the wall. HR sat beside them, hands folded, eyes down. My stomach tightened. I took an empty chair, halfway down the table. Caleb cleared his throat. "Leo," he said, finally looking at me. "Thank you for coming." His voice was calm, professional, practiced. Not the voice he used when we joked at 2 a.m. Not the voice he used when we celebrated milestones. This was a stranger's voice. "We've been evaluating the company's readiness for the next phase," he continued. "As you know, we're approaching a major liquidity event." I nodded. Everyone knew about the IPO. It was all Caleb talked about now. "The board has concerns," he said. That word landed hard. Concerns. One of the board members leaned forward. An older man with silver hair and a watch that cost more than my car. "Leo," he said, "your technical contributions are undeniable." Undeniable. Past tense. "But," I asked. "But the company is evolving," another board member said. "We need leadership that reflects stability, social adaptability, public confidence." I frowned. "I'm not in PR." Caleb smiled slightly, like I'd just proven a point. "This isn't about your skills," he said gently. "It's about fit." Fit. That word again. The one that never has a definition. HR finally spoke. "There have been concerns about your communication style," she said, reading from a tablet. "Your reluctance to attend public-facing events. Your appearance." I glanced down at my hoodie. You're firing me because I don't wear suits? I asked. Caleb raised his hands. No one's saying that. But you are firing me, I said. There it was, out in the open. Caleb didn't deny it. We believe this is the best path forward, he said. For everyone. For everyone, I repeated. The lawyer cleared his throat. Effective immediately, he said. Your role as Chief Technology Officer is terminated. Your shares will be restructured according to Clause 14B. I felt the blood drain from my face. What clause? I asked. Caleb leaned back in his chair. The one you signed, he said. 5 years ago. I tried to remember. Early days. Coffee shop paperwork. Legal language I barely read because I trusted him. My mistake. You're taking my shares? I asked. Not all, Caleb said quickly. Just most. It reflects contribution beyond technical execution. I laughed. It came out sharp, almost hysterical. Beyond technical execution? I said. I built the entire system. And you were compensated, he replied. Generously. That was a lie. I looked around the table. No one met my eyes. This had been decided long before I walked in. Security appeared at the door. Not aggressive. Just present. A message. You'll have 30 minutes to collect personal items, HR said softly. IT access will be revoked immediately. I stood up slowly. So that's it? I asked. 5 years, and this is how it ends? Caleb finally looked uncomfortable. You'll land on your feet, Leo, he said. You're brilliant. Just not what the company needs anymore. I nodded. Not angry, not yet, just empty. I walked out of the boardroom. As I rode the elevator down, my phone buzzed. Access revoked. Email disabled. Credentials expired. By the time I reached the lobby, I no longer worked for the company I built. But as the glass doors slid open and the city noise rushed in, I realized something Caleb hadn't. He'd fired the man, not the system, and the system still answered to me. I didn't go home. I didn't know where home was anymore. Instead, I drove until the city thinned out, parked near the bay, and opened my laptop in the front seat. The same laptop I'd used in the parking garage years ago. No company VPN, no corporate access. Just me and the system I still understood better than anyone alive. Caleb thought firing me ended my connection. He forgot something fundamental. I didn't access the system. I designed it. I started where I always started when something felt wrong. Logs, transaction logs, server calls. Data flows most people never bothered to look at because they assumed everything worked. And it did. Too well. At first, nothing jumped out. Clean architecture. Balanced loads. No obvious leaks. Then I noticed a pattern. Tiny delays. Micro holds in payment routing. Fractions of a second. Too small to trigger alerts. Too consistent to be random. My pulse quickened. I isolated the function. Decompiled it line by line. The logic was mine. Elegant. Defensive. But nested inside it, deep enough that no casual audit would ever reach, was a redirection layer. Not a bug. A feature. Funds skimmed at volume, rerouted through shell entities, disguised as operational overhead. My overhead. I leaned back in the seat, staring at the screen. Caleb hadn't stolen loudly. He'd stolen politely. Over years, I followed the trail. The shell companies were registered offshore. Cayman, Malta, Singapore, each one clean on its own, together, a funnel. And at the end of that funnel, Caleb. Personal accounts. Luxury assets. A lifestyle that suddenly made sense. The watches. The travel. The way he stopped worrying about money long before the IPO was even announced. He hadn't just pushed me out. He'd been using my system as cover. I closed my laptop for a moment. I didn't feel angry. Anger is loud. Messy. What I felt was clarity. I considered my options. I could sue. Years of litigation, lawyers, depositions. Caleb smiling for cameras while dragging it out until I ran out of money or energy. I could go public, leak documents, watch it turn into noise and speculation and PR spin. None of that would touch him. Not really. Then I remembered something. Something small. Something boring. Something Caleb never cared about. Infrastructure paperwork. In the early days, before the board, before the lawyers, before the suits, we'd needed servers fast. No time for corporate structures. No patience for delays. So I'd registered the core infrastructure myself. Servers, domains, redundancy clusters, all under one name. Mine? At the time, it was temporary. A placeholder. Something we'd fix later. We never did. The company didn't own the backbone. I did. Legally, cleanly, undeniably. I checked the records to be sure. There it was. Every core server, every fallback, every mirror. Registered to Leo Mercer, not the company. Not Caleb, me. I laughed quietly in the dark. Caleb had taken my title, my shares, my reputation, but he'd left me the one thing that mattered, the switch. The IPO was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks of rehearsals, media training, interviews. Caleb practicing his humble founder smile in every reflective surface he could find. I didn't rush. I documented everything. Clean chains of evidence, time-stamped logs, account traces that even a bored federal agent could follow without effort. I didn't touch the system yet. I just watched the pressure build, watched the valuation climb, watched Caleb step further into the spotlight. On the morning of the IPO, I woke up before dawn and made coffee. Sat at a small kitchen table in a borrowed apartment. Opened my laptop. The live broadcast was already streaming. Caleb stood at a podium, suit perfectly tailored, confidence radiating. "We're proud to bring this company to the public today," he said. "Built on innovation, trust, transparency." I smiled. I didn't delete anything. I didn't corrupt data. I didn't sabotage code. I simply authenticated. As the owner, and powered the system down. The website froze. The app stopped responding. Graphs on live television flatlined. Caleb's smile faltered. Behind him, aides whispered. Phones came out. Panic rippled through the room. The ticker never started. The IPO died before it was born. And as I watched the chaos unfold, I forwarded one final folder. Subject line: Audit Trail. Personal accounts attached. I closed the laptop. The system went dark. And for the first time in years, I slept. For the first few minutes, nobody understood what was happening. On live television, graphs froze mid-animation. The company logo stayed on screen too long, like it was embarrassed to still be there. Caleb's smile didn't disappear right away. At first, he thought it was a glitch. An assistant leaned in, whispering. Then, another. Phones appeared. A producer waved frantically from offstage. Caleb laughed into the microphone. "Looks like we're experiencing a brief technical delay," he said. "Bear with us." But the delay didn't fix itself. The website never came back. The app stayed dead. Every screen in the control room showed the same thing, no response from server. The silence stretched. Caleb's jaw tightened. Behind the cameras, panic spread like a virus. Engineers scrambled. Backup systems failed to engage. Redundancy after redundancy returned nothing. Because redundancy only works if you own it. Within 20 minutes, the network cut away. Anchors filled time with speculation. Analysts stared at tablets that refused to load data. The stock ticker never activated. A $500 million IPO collapsed before the opening bell. By noon, the story had shifted. Not technical issues, not unexpected outages, but ownership. Sources confirm the company does not legally own its core infrastructure. Servers registered to a former CO founder. Questions emerging about internal governance. Caleb didn't answer questions anymore. He couldn't. Because while he was being escorted out a side entrance, another group was walking in. Federal agents don't rush. They don't need to. They have time. And paperwork. The audit folder I sent landed exactly where it needed to. Clear timelines, clean trails. Every transaction mapped from the system to shell companies to personal accounts. Caleb's accounts, his lifestyle, his lies. By evening, his face was everywhere, but not the way he'd imagined. No podium, no applause. Just footage of him shielding his eyes from cameras, suit wrinkled, confidence evaporated. I watched none of it live. I was somewhere quieter. I sat in a small apartment with boxes still unpacked. No office, no badge, no title, just a laptop on a table and a cup of coffee gone cold. My phone buzzed constantly. Former board members, lawyers, journalists, numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to explain. The system was still off, and it would stay that way until ownership changed legally. Weeks passed. The company never recovered. Without the infrastructure, it was just a brand with no backbone. Lawsuits stacked up. Investors fled. Employees scattered to safer ground. Caleb was charged quietly. No dramatic arrest footage. Just filings, seizures, frozen accounts, the kind of ending that doesn't trend but lasts. One afternoon, I received a single envelope. Inside was a settlement offer, ownership transfer, non-disclosure, a number big enough that I didn't have to think about money again. I signed it, not out of mercy, out of closure. Months later, I walked past a cafe with a cracked wooden table by the window. Someone else sat there now, laptop open, dreaming. I smiled. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even proud. I was just done. People still ask how I got revenge. They expect something dramatic. I tell them the truth. I didn't destroy anything, I say. I just turned off what was mine, because in the end, I didn't steal the company back. I deleted the key.